All right. Peace, everybody. Welcome to our new show, Improve. I'm Achi El Karar, know what I'm talking about, and we back. We're back again for another journey, another adventure. You know what I'm talking about, and hey, we recorded this one again. I'm out of town, so yeah. Last strong, we started off law. You know what I'm talking about. And we're continuing that segment with Law Part 2. You know what I'm talking about? So we just going to get into it. So let's go, man. All right. I just wanted to show, because it's future. All right, future. I don't know if you all can really see it well, but maybe if you full screen it, you'll be able to see this graph of basically the disparity of imprisonment across ages, but the racial disparity across all ages, this was done in 2019 that I took this from. So, yeah, as you can see, if you have any questions on who's on the right, it's us, you know. But also, as you can see, that that number skyrockets or tops out at the age of 35 to 39, which is very telling, and then it goes down from there as it goes up, like a bell curve in a sense. But it's like I say, very interesting and telling how you make such a disparity, but yet you're like not the majority of the U.S. population, but it's not. It's all done by design, I ain't said it in a while, but it's in the manual. It's in the manual. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit. We gon' since I'm not there, go buy it in bits and pieces. You know what I'm talking about. So yeah. I found this interesting. This was I took this from a picture where it talks about the pig law. Pig law was enacted after slavery, where if you stole a pig and that it had a value of $1, that was a felony. And it goes into what we're really talking about today, because somebody, Zach, Zach, gave spoilers, unbeknownst spoilers, but spoilers of what we're going to talk about today, which is incarceration, right? So this is one of those laws, after slavery and after reconstruction, you had things like the pig law, and you had black codes, but we never talk about we know about the black codes or the slave codes or whatever you want to call them, we know about the black codes, but we've never heard of anything like pig law. Like what? Like yeah. If you stole a pig and it was the equivalent of $1, that was a felony. But if you can sort of see the similarities as in modern times with what? If you had what more like what more than 10 ounces or a gram of substance, we're just gonna call it substance of crack, crack and drugs, that was, and you was going to jail. And then you had 3 strikes, but it was all for what? to lock you up, to incarcerate you, just like these, just like these. We just don't talk about them. We think, oh, Juneteenth, we free, even though that was, Juneteenth, we were party, which, like I say, that in itself is sad, that them Texas boys, would pretty much last find out, but it is what it is, and none of us talk about, we talk about emancipation, but none of us talk about, it didn't end there with just slavery. It never ended there with just slavery, and it was done. Oh no. So that's why I show this picture of its repealing. But but as you can see at the bottom, what, $25, is the now is constitutes as a felony, at this time. Now, some of these so-called laws will be not only acted in Mississippi, but also around the South. So, got to keep in mind, wasn't just one state. It was all of them. It was a lot of them, So, back to the code. Compensatory racist code, right? Avoid doing anything that you have reason to believe may result in you being put into greater confinement, jail, prison, etc. Now, if message, but we, Nilfull says, man, if avoid doing anything, that you have a reason to believe that may result in you being put in greater confinement. And that is a lot. That's why it's probably important to, have a black law dictionary or whatever. But or knowing the laws or statutes in your state and seeing, the difference between misdemeanors and the classes of misdemeanors and felonies. And what those look like and how long you can be sentenced for, oh man, you be putting up bids of football, putting up bids of football numbers, if you ain't careful, or what's the issue now? You can put up for Rico, but just dry snitching on yourself in songs. just yeah. It's that. Just Rico. Usually you have to, but hey, it is what it is, But yeah, all of that constitutes greater confinement. Federal, state, county, parish, so you don't want to do anything that gives you reason to believe that result in putting you in greater confinement or jail and prison or anything like that. Nilfull, says avoid all of that before doing anything that that puts you in greater confinement. This is a picture of a monument, basically in Tennessee, but Tennessee. And it talks about the convict lease system, and the convict lease system was not just in Tennessee, but like I say, just like with these laws and codes, the convict lease system was also all in the South, right? What that was basically what uh, the state would do. You know, you gotta understand something after slavery and Reconstruction, these southern states were poor. They were poor. So they came up with a good idea. Well, I wouldn't say a good idea, but they came up with a good idea. Not by cultural standards, not by our cultural standards. I'll reiterate that. They came up with a good idea. Hey, I got it. Hey, yo, I know how we can make this money. What we gonna do is we gonna convict lease to big corporate, well, big business or big corporations at the time, or industrial corporations. So that's what they would do. You know, because they didn't have no money and they had to, you know, generate income. What they would do, they would lease convicts out, you know, as you know, workers, you know, to businesses, i.e., coal mining, to build railroads, you know, to build roads. That's gonna be a big one, even you know after turn of the century, because you gotta understand something. In the South, they had bad roads, you know. They had bad roads at one point in time. So who do you think built those paved roads? Yeah, but you also have to understand after in this time, um the convicts look like who? You. And um you you basically had, you know, all these black or melanin rich dominant, you know, men, women, and children. Yes, men, women, and children, you know, getting put, we're gonna use old terms, getting put in the big house um for charges or trumped up charges that they didn't commit. You know, sounds familiar? Getting trumped on trumped up charges that they didn't commit, and then they have to work, um, you know, for you know this company, you know, working code. You don't know nothing about no dang code. You don't know nothing about building no railroad, but you gonna build some railroad. You gonna you know you gonna have some, you know. But they look like you. Or at this time they was making turpentine as well. So you know you be making turpentine and things like that, you know, for free, but the state making money. Like I said, you know, we look at the principal industrial complex as something new. It's been here, bro. It's been here. Some of it, people motion, not memory. Um, it was just called something different. It was called the convict lease system, but it's been here. You know, it's been here, and this is one such example of that system. You know, because it was in, like I said, in Tennessee, it was in Georgia, it was in Florida, it was in Alabama, it was in Mississippi, and it was in Louisiana. You know, if you look at the statistics today, um, Louisiana has, you know, the highest prison population in the country. You know, so yeah, uh, you know, I made it my business never go to Angola. Don't do nothing that will send me to Angola. You know, for real. You know. But yeah. So moving on. All right. Cold Creek War. This, if you ask me, wasn't really a war, but that's what they call it. It's an altercation. What happened was this was in Tennessee. Tennessee. I say Tennessee, but Tennessee. In a place called Cold Creek. Well, it was more than one location, but one location was Cold Creek, right? And what happened was the coal miners there, if you don't know, Tennessee does have had coal mining towns, still do in some places. And those are the ones you stay away from. And the companies there, one was Tennessee Coal. They basically had a disagreement with the workers and the company. And so all these coal miners were fired, like they were doing from this time to turn of the century. They'll just fire them. And who did they get to work? These coal miners, convicts. You they say convicts, but you already know who they talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I'm gonna have to call. I'm gonna have to call that one back. But you already know who they talking about. And so what happened was, these convicts would work these mines, and the workers didn't like it, because what they did is that one thing they would do, the companies did, was they got rid of all the worker housing in these towns, and then we'll put up stockades and barracks, barracks for like prisoners, convicts, which they didn't like. So they basically did an armed strike, revolt thing, and they stormed the stockade and apparently marched these prisoners, put them on the train and sent them, back to believe Lexington. No, that's Kentucky. It showed one Nashville. Knoxville. That's where they sent them to. Almost forgot. But send them back to Knoxville, right? And it got so bad, because I gotta make a long story short. But it got so bad that they involved the governor of Tennessee at that time. And even he basically put up as a hostage, because it got so bad. The governor got involved because he sent them back. He sent the convicts back. He did not stand with the workers or anything like that. So he sent them back. They kept on sending them back. Then they had to, basically involve state militia, or what you would call the National Guard, but the state militia got involved as well. And so there was like a armed standoff insurrection, but the end result was that the workers pretty much got back their jobs. But as you can see, if you could read it, they built a prison, and that prison was used basically also to mine coal in the area that was solely for the state. It's like, okay, y'all workers can mine coal for the company, but they're mining coal solely for the benefit of the state, to sell and make money. So that's why you see, that's basically what was pretty much the compromise. Mind you, you have these workers who are armed and kidnapped governors and killed at least one soldier. I'm talking about. No one gets locked up but one person. But nobody gets locked up. Hundreds of people. Ain't nobody getting locked up. That's because they didn't look like you. But if you ain't figured that out, I'm telling you that they didn't look like you. But they were able to go home. They were able to go home. Meanwhile, you got to work on chain gangs and whatnot, and you ain't do nothing. You're innocent of the charge, but because everybody is in on the plot, basically to use you for free labor, like they did in slavery. They just called watch the documentary Slavery by Nothing. Now I watched it when I was like a kid, teenager or whatever. So I pretty much knew about this. But they'll do that, and then you're serving trumped up, these sentences that and you didn't do anything. That's what the movie Life is all about. If you thought it was just funny, out of pappy, boss, I be that baby's daddy. But no, that's really what it was about, because that really did happen. That really did happen. You had people, people that malnourished men, malnourished boys, boys, kids, being put in prison for no reason, all to provide free labor that they could basically lease out to big companies. What they would later call the robber barons. Yes. I know. I got a big brain. Anyway. Or, big brain, some people. But, yeah, the robber barons. That's what they talking about. U.S. Steel in them. Yeah. Michael, we're bigger than U.S. Steel. But yeah, this is what happened. And then they had what? Peonage as well, where, if you owe some money, even if you didn't really owe money, you went into certain debt, you will work farms for like 5 to 10 years. We just say 5 to 10 years, right? But then they'll say, "Oh, you still owe money." No, I served my time. You'll sign a contract agreement saying you work, 10 years, 5 years to work off your debt, and then they'll tell you, you be like, "Oh, I don't work anymore." Yes, you do. So that was also a thing. Also, I mentioned pig laws, vagrancy laws, key important, because if you can, if you couldn't prove that you had stable income, yeah, you were also going to get locked up. If you couldn't prove that you had stable income or you had a place to live, yeah, they'll lock you up too. That's why you got to be careful when it comes to homelessness, because if those laws was there at one point in time, they can come back. Vagrancy laws can come back. So you gotta be careful with that as well. But yeah, peonage is like, in this context, peonage is like forced. We just gonna say forced indentured servitude. I know they try to coin that term for slavery, but when you think about it, that's what it is. It's forced indentured servitude. Whereas, because it's a big scheme, you force somebody to work something where you say they owe money, and everybody, like I say, everybody's in on it. The judge, justices of the peace, whoever, the sheriff, everybody's in on it. They'll lease you to this rich family down south that has a farm, plantation, whatever, and you got to work. But that's really forcing indentured servitude because you can't leave. You unlike some people that like to wear green, that said that they were in slavery and indentured servitude. Yeah, but you get to leave at the end of your your time. they literally couldn't leave. They want, no, you can't leave. The only way you're gonna leave is in a pine box. You know what I'm talking about? And so there's that. And even when you have that, mind you, these people that were, in different states, they're going to get caught. But ain't nobody gonna go to jail, pretty much. Ain't nobody gonna go to jail. Either, look, in one situation, they were pardoned by a president. One that said, he was a rough rider, but we know who the real rough riders, don't we, Chief? We know who the real rough riders was. But yeah, he pardoned those that were Theodore Roosevelt. He pardoned those in Alabama that were using peonage, and they got convicted, but they were pardoned, and they were still doing what they do. You know what I'm talking about? In a sense, so that was a big thing, because even though I put to you like this, even though slavery had been abolished, peonage wasn't. So that was like the loophole. You know what I'm talking about? You can say, oh, well, peonage is not illegal technically, so you're good. It's like that. You know what I'm talking about? So, like I say, look, I can say I gave spoilers. So that's what was really happening after slavery and Reconstruction. And it kept on going, kept on going for a long time. That's why I say, hey, it was already there. It was already there. Some of us either, like forgot about it, didn't talk about it. But that's why, you have memory, people of memory. You know what I'm talking about? All right. In a social material system dominated by racism, white supremacy, all non-white people are confined, retarded, restricted in thought, speech, and action at all times, in all places, and in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, kind of war. This is a run-on sentence, so all right. The white supremacists know that the world system based on racism requires that substantial numbers of non-white people are greatly restricted in their movements from place to place. The white supremacists restrict the movements and activities of non-white people to keep them idle and or keep them from becoming constructively self-sufficient. Message, if you Shawshank Redemption talked about being institutionalized and whatnot, but if you institutionalize people, restrict their movements, mind you, historically that's always been the issue. In a sense, your movement and has been restricted either through mass incarceration, slavery, the like, right? And what has that done? It sort of has kept you idle because you don't want to make any moves that get you noticed to where you're marked, in a sense, but you're already marked, or it keeps you from becoming constructively self-sufficient as well, because at the same time, you don't want to get too big to what they notice you as well. And that target is on you, because that's also a thing. The melanin rich people, become self-sufficient, and what happens? Riots and massacres. Tulsa, Rosewood, Delaware. Wilmington. It's like, need I go on? So I mean, it's there. What I'm talking about. So that's how deep the system is, man. You'll have basically people that look like they're able to move constructively and whatnot, but as a cultural group, socially, economically, and in all of these areas of activity, there's some type of restrictive movement where you're barred from, in a sense. No one understand that racist man and racist woman, white supremacists collectively, enjoy knowing that non-white people are traditionally and routinely in large numbers confined to cages or reservations similar to those of despised or enslaved animals or selected pets. They seem to associate dark-skinned non-white people with creatures or things that are suitable for cages, crypts, coops, chains, cuffs, ropes, shackles, stalls, yokes, and all forms of acute and harsh ghettoization. This is why you have so much social media about, especially in the news. There's always some type of violent crime, and you are the figurehead of it. Because that makes them sleep better. As long as it's them and not us, even though the craziest violent crimes, look like them, right? But they like to know that you're in cages, especially the men. Why? Because you ain't out doing what they fear the most. I'm just saying. Hey. Birth of a Nation already. The first Birth of a Nation. Birth of a Nation already told you what was the big fear and whatnot. So as long as all of y'all are locked in cages and in jail, or in public housings, reservations, they can sleep well at night, knowing that you ain't in their neighborhoods, or whatever. But yeah, so yeah, it's there, man. So now when people have been directly and indirectly trained to spend much of their existence in a condition of restriction of movement, according to the desired dictates and plans of white supremacists of the known universe. It's sort of ingrained, in a sense, because you have restricted movement and slavery. You couldn't go nowhere without a pass. Where's the papers, boy? Sorry. But yeah, at least I said that, and what they really said. But yeah, because if you didn't have your papers, that man got roll, worry about them dang on patty rollers. You know what I'm talking about? But yeah, but there's always a restriction of movement. Like I say, from slavery to even the false incarceration of malnourished people after Reconstruction. There's a restriction of movement. Even also restriction of movement, sharecropping, because you ain't gonna be able to move if you in debt. And that's another inflated debt that that people are lying about. So yeah, or the restricted movement of character, you being the stereotype of being criminals, from birth. You know, that's another one that restricts movement. That's, you know, which causes you to what? To be in ghettos, in a sense. You know, we're going to keep you over here so you ain't getting too close to us. You know, and we're gonna restrict your movement so you cannot be self-sufficient. You don't have to rely on us for everything. Hey, so yeah, man. Let's get into
divine order. And so we get a mythology. Not only though do people build a mythology to justify what they're into, they act in terms of the mythologies that they develop. The mythology of racism and the mythology that was built around black people is used to justify segregation, justify discrimination, justify all forms of misbehavior toward us as a people. Once you use that mythology and use the mythology to create an environment, you actually then begin to create behavior as a result of placing the person in a particular environment, you see. And this is what happens. You put people in a particular environment. After a while, that environment is reflected in their behavior. You put a person in prison, you keep them in prison, they learn to be criminal. Yes, and we know prisons are schools for criminality. But you see, the process of putting them in is overlooked. The process of creating the environment is overlooked. What you do is count noses after you've done it. You say, oh, well, you know, so many of them are arrested for violence. That means they must be violent. But the whole process of how it happened is not dealt with. I deal with something in black on black violence I call the structuration of crime. What am I trying to say there? Simply because a man mugs someone else doesn't mean he's more criminal than a man who swindles, even though we are often convinced of that. Often crime is not irrational, but a rational process. People weigh, they weigh all kinds of options often when they engage in crime. When you've robbed a person of education, you've robbed them of job opportunities and possibilities, locked them in what amounts to reservations. If they had the same level of criminality as a person who has a degree in accounting, works as a vice president of a bank, they're going to create two different sorts of crimes, not because one is more criminal than the other, but because of the structure in which they both reside. As I've said before, it's crazy if you are an accountant and you have control of the money and you can electronically transfer millions of dollars to your own account for you to go out in the street and knock somebody in the head for a few nickels. You have what? Different options. Not that you're necessarily less criminal. Your object is the same, to do what? Get money. You look at your options. So, hey, man, I can transfer this, I got $1 million, I'm done with it. But another man who's not what? Sitting at that position, is not in that place, looks at his options. Well, I either got to break into a house, knock somebody in the head, one way or the other, you see. And yet we don't talk about, you see, how so-called black on black violence and the criminality in our community is structured by the very system itself. You see, how placing and restrict our people under certain circumstances and restricting their options, we literally dictate the types of crime that they will commit when they commit them. And then we want to talk about their violent nature and try to connect it with their genes. See, when these whites were begging and poor and weak over here in this country, they didn't hesitate to kill and mug the Indians, did they? To rape and rob and steal and do whatever they could. Once they got it under control and passed their mafia rules, they didn't have to engage in that anymore. They used their army and police force and other kind of things to do that. And then they can look like they are less violent and less, this and that. Why? Because they're less criminal? No. Because their options are different. You see? And in a way, then, if we to change the nature of so-called criminality, as I tell people, look, you want us to get out of violent crime? Let us become accountants. We'll just run a good S&L scandal on you, but we won't hit anybody in the head, Won't shoot anybody. But it's very important for us to understand as we got to rush through here. But we got to look at these kind of things, you see, before we just jump up and make moral condemnations and make psychological condemnations of people and other kind of things. That's why, you see, you got to be African-centered in your education so that you can perform the right kind of analyses and things. But when you let other people teach your children, you let other people teach you, they're going to teach you and educate you into ignorance and into stupidity, I'm telling you. And into blindness and distort your perception and capacity to see what is going on. And you join with them in condemning yourself and your children, you see. And you will think that the only thing that needs to be changed is some kind of moral relationship here, an outcome. No, there are political and social and economic changes that must occur if we're to change things here. So to a great extent, the crime that's created in this world is created as a result, particularly in terms of the so-called black community, of the structuring of this society by white domination and the mythology that it projects to justify that domination. Most of all, it's structured by the whites' denial of their own criminality and their own criminal behavior, and their projecting of their own criminality onto their victims. So the Indians become the savages, even though they were minding their business before you got here. They were alive, they had their nations. But now you say that they were killed because they were savages. You see, so the whole thing gets turned around. Tremendous psychic violence, which I think is even worse than physical violence, was visited on our people. We don't have time to talk about this today. Why do we think of black people anyway as more criminal? Let's look quickly at this game and see how it's played, this projecting of criminality. The political paradox is, as stated in the Wall Street Journal in August 1992, people with the least to fear from crime drive the crime issue. Appeals to suburban whites highlight split between perception and reality. In other words, people who are least threatened by crime are the first one to talk about it. And the people who are less threatened directly by crime are the first people that the politicians talk to and generate fear in about crime. You had Clinton talking about the hiring 100,000 police officers. And yet, the perception of crime and the public perception of crime and the reality of crime remain far apart. In 1990, whites committed 54% of all violent crimes, while blacks committed 45%. The rate of increase in the incidence of violent crime over the past decade has been the same among blacks and whites. But why do we get this image of black folk as being the criminal folk? You see? Moreover, violent crimes between races are by far the exception. Black people are not out here wholesalely attacking white folk. Black folk are victimized more by other black folk than by anyone else, and so are white folk. In 1998, 92% of violent crimes committed against whites were committed by other whites, while 84% of violent crimes committed against blacks were committed by other blacks. So why do we get this image here of some black folks stalking in the shadows, looking to victimize white folk more than they victimize themselves? Why is crime even talked about with that image anyway, you see? You must recognize then that there's a political game going on here, a psychological game, a mythology being created, a managing of image to justify domination, a managing of image to justify unemployment and to justify locking people in inner city reservations and to justify the continued control of the lives of African people by non-African people, going against the very facts that these people themselves collect, you see, and know better. And while and we look at a couple of other things here, the American Medical Association published around in June 1992 a battery of some 70 studies indicating that the greatest increase in gunshot deaths has been among white men and women in large and small cities, with black men and for black men in small cities. Among white men and women in inner city, that is, violence among white men and women in the inner cities rose by about 30%, slightly more than blacks. So where do we get this image here then, that blacks are in the vanguard of criminality in this country? And why do we, as black people, buy this? Doesn't mean that we are not engaged in violence to police, I'm not saying that. But why is it that we have this one side image? TV is promoting this perception. Why do we have the image of the white woman as being victimized by the hulking black man, when a recent study indicates it found that women of any age were far less likely to be victimized and the victims of crime than men? In fact, black males are by far the most frequent victims of violence. For every 1,000 black males over the age of 12, 53 have been victims of a violent crime. That compares with 35 white males, 28.2 black females, and 21.3 white females. But yet we get this image of Miss Helpless, you know, being brutalized and overrun by black men. We have to face what's going on here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a game being played on the...
All right, so that was Dr. Amos Wilson. You know what I'm talking about? He always come through with it. You know what I'm talking about? So, but yeah, man, you know, this clip is actually, you know, is audio, but it's actually come from video. You know, it's just that, you know, the videos that I saw didn't have good audio quality. You know, gotta remember VHS. So, but this one does in a sense. So that's why I chose. But it's longer. So if you want to see it in its entirety, it's you're able to. But like I say, he really breaks down the criminality of, you know, America and things like that. You know, how it's always been criminal. You know what I'm talking about? And you can see, especially with your history, you can see how it's always been criminal. Like I say, prison industrial complex is not nothing new. It just went by another name. Just like slavery. Look, you know. You know. So yeah, you was used to build railroads, roads, turpentine, you know, just a bunch of stuff. Work release. You know, where you think they get it from? You know what I'm talking about? whatever, it's always been there, man. It's always been there. The trumped up charges and the falsification of charges, it's always been there, and them and those that were caught not being convicted or pardoned, So yeah, man, it is what it is, with that one, man. But yeah, we gonna keep on going with it though. So join us next strong. Well, we will continue. We gonna continue with law. I'll be back then, and we gonna continue with it, and we gonna keep on, going down this journey, because it is the statutes that what puts us in greater confinement a lot of the time. Oh man. So we all got stories, or we know people, or we're family related to, those that have been in greater confinement, more than one, So yeah, man, it runs deep, it runs deep. The system is deep, man. But remember that we have our new fellowship tomorrow, and then we have midday affirmation, what I'm talking about. Also, I don't know if I can do this. I'm not going to try to mess with it. If I was going to show, maybe I can see if it's there. So yeah, I knew the Honor retreat is in August. You know what I'm talking about? We gonna be in that NOLA, that New Orleans, So yeah, come out with us, man. And hey yo, Chief Y'all podcast. He just came out with part 3, you know what I'm talking about. Which, it's the closing of it, you know what I'm talking about. Of the Proverbs 31, and it's good, you know what I'm talking about. And also remember, we have movie night, 5:35, you know what I'm talking about. That's when we start, look, green pastures, bruh. that has one about movies. You already know that's another one where they in Louisiana, they in the parish, so I knew what they were talking about, Gabriel had to go to, y'all tall, like I said, y'all had Jefferson Davis haircut, but it was a good movie, man. It was a good movie. I even had to ask my grandmother if she ever seen that movie. She said no, but I'm going to have to show her that movie. And then if I did, she probably know what I'm talking about then. So, but yeah, man. Give thanks to everybody. I will see y'all next strong. You know what I'm talking about. So thanks for showing up and showing out. You know what I'm talking about. And I'll get at you later. Peace.